We get a lot of great guests on Beyond the Wrench, but I'm not sure any of them have had the background that my guest today has. Lenny Fumarolo is a very accomplished person and working with the Secret Service. I've been anticipating this one for a long time. I met Lenny, I think it was last year at SEMA Apex at the
Yep.
ASE event. We were able to meet, and I just couldn't help but just geek out over the stories that you had for me. So, really, really excited to have you on the show. How you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me. Um, yeah, it's a bit different what we do, I guess. So kind of catches people off guard.
How many days of the year would you say you travel?
So a campaign year is a bit different because it's hectic than every day. So a campaign year, you might be gone somewhere 150, 200 days of the year. Um, an average year so far this year, I'm pacing to probably be out of town on travel 80, 85
All right.
days maybe for the year. Um,
Yeah, yeah. You go through
yeah,
those stretches where you got to reintroduce yourself to your home life.
yeah, it can get a little hectic, especially if something goes on at home, like a water heater goes out or there's a snowstorm and you're somewhere warm, but it's snowing at home and the wife's there dealing with it. But there's also 14 of us. So 14 times 85, I mean, that's a lot of days on the road.
That's a lot of days on the road. And we're going to dive into a lot of the Secret Service portion of your life here coming up. But we're going to start this just like we do with all podcasts and learning about how you got into the industry and your life as a whole, because there are some really cool things even beyond what you're doing right now that were a part of your upbringing and what have got you to where you're at today. How did it all start? What got you interested in cars? What got you interested in this industry?
Well, my mom will love this part because she would always say I would try to take apart the washing machine all the time. So apparently, since I was real little, I was constantly like fiddling with stuff and taking things apart. And then once I was old enough, I don't even know what year, four or five, maybe, walking around doing stuff with my dad. He did a lot of his own maintenance on his cars himself. And I would help with that. He wasn't a mechanic by trade or anything. He was in marketing and commercial art background. So this is something completely different, but he was always doing stuff with the cars. So anything that had to do with the cars, I wanted to be involved. And then, anything I get my hands on, I was always taking stuff apart and kind of getting yelled at for, don't take that apart. We need that. Whether it was a stereo, I can remember possibly in the background or anything else in the house I could get my hands on. I was always taking stuff apart and working on this, different things. So,
I think we hear that from a lot of the very very accomplished technical folks that they had their brain work differently at an early age, right? And just the interest in how things work and taking things apart. And I think by doing that at an early age, you learn so much because you're able obviously to retain more when you're younger, but then when you have that general curiosity of how things work, I think that translates for the rest of your life, right? Because that is something where you are learning something each time you take that dishwasher apart or the washing machine apart. You're learning something every time you're doing something and how things work together.
right. No, I 100% agree, especially when it's at a young age like that, whether your parent or whoever you're with is got a mechanical background, but you're visual, right? When you're younger. So everything is what you see, feel, and touch. So it starts there, right? And then of course we only had a few channels back in the day. So one of the big things I always watched was NASCAR. So
Absolutely.
every Sunday I was glued to the TV until, it was over watching Rusty Wallace back in the day or, the Valvoline car running around or Dale when he was alive, it was NASCAR, NASCAR, NASCAR every weekend. So, yep.
I was the same. Who was your driver?
Oh, I would say Rusty back then. Yeah, when I was little, it was always Rusty in that Miller car.
To this day, still one of my favorite paint schemes of all time. I think that is such an iconic paint scheme, and when you're watching it back when you're a kid, I didn't really think anything differently, right? Because they had all of the black cars coming out with Earnhardt and Rusty,
Right.
There were some others as well, but man, the amount of just iconic paint schemes back then was incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. So a little bit different now, a lot more decals, a lot more advertising, but it's still kind of neat to watch. I've kind of shifted. I'm more of I still watch an Indy 500, of course, and Indy races, but more of a F1 American Le Mans fan now. So,
Yeah, yeah, it's I've definitely taken more interest in probably the last 10 years than I ever had when I was growing up. And some of it is just availability to watch it. I think there were a lot of times when we were growing up where maybe you didn't
yep.
have all of the opportunities where something like NASCAR was on national TV every single weekend. Even that's shifted, right? Like you have to have 10 different apps to be able to watch what you want to watch now, but it is more readily available than when we were growing up.
Yeah, 100%. It was, like I say, NASCAR was the only racing you could watch. Other than, well, maybe NHRA if you're lucky, if it was a big event. Uh,
Yep.
but when you had the clicker on the TV and you had to actually turn the dial and click it to what channel you want and move the bunny ears, which now this is making me sound old, but it was a bit different than it is now. You can't just go on your phone and watch whatever you want.
Isn't that the truth? Now, what formalized this as a profession for you? As you're coming up, you're interested in mechanical things as a whole. What was it that kind of made you look at this as a career?
So as I was growing up, I progressed through, woodworking because again, hands-on and doing stuff with that to, my family was always involved in marketing and advertising and art. So I draw a lot, do all that kind of stuff, painted in the past. Started getting through college involved in that and then decided it wasn't for me. Um, was all over the place. I've done everything from managed Sears hardware stores and Home Depot to working at a dealership and now at Secret Service. So I've been kind of all over the place. But it was more of when I realized I could make a career out of working on cars and that NASCAR at the time was looking for people in a big way. I made the decision that that's what I wanted to do. And I wanted to go to NASCAR. So I was still the older guy at UTI because that's where I ended up going. Um, but I went in as the old guy and I told them at my recruitment event, I guess you could say, or recruitment day, that I wanted to be in NASCAR. That's what I was going to school for. And that's what I ended up doing.
What was your first job in NASCAR?
So first job was actually, I told them I would do anything, but I ended up being an over the wall guy. So
Really?
I was carrying fuel for a Craftsman truck team, the Red Line Oil team. I was the fuel guy, or I carry tires depending on the day because the team I was with didn't have a lot of funding. So at the time, and this is back when Craftsman Trucks was just starting. So I would do whatever was needed. Either I was driving the hauler, I was doing body work, I was, on race day, I'm carrying tires or carrying the fuel over the wall. Um, Now, of course, it's, ex college football players and ex NFL players doing it, but I did it back in the day. So
That's incredible. And what year would that have been, or like what time frame were
So
you working in NASCAR?
I went back to school to have a way to get into the industry with UTI back in two no 1999. I started, uh, but I started with a NASCAR team back in 2020. No, let me
Oh,
correct that. 2000 started. Yeah, school 1999. 2000 is when I started with the team.
it had to be a little intimidating, didn't it? You go from being in school to now you're going over the wall.
Yeah, a
That's a
bit.
big jump.
A bit. I wasn't expecting that, but I guess just because I jumped in and was doing everything they needed at the shop where I was at, and then uh, of course everything was in Mooresville, North Carolina at that time, um, and then it progressed rapidly because they saw I could do other things, and I was one of the few people we had that was able to carry the gas can, because that thing's
Heavy.
enormous back in the day, sitting up above your head. It's what, 90 pounds or so. And you got to go over the wall with it and not fall and not let it fall on you and get the gas into the car. So yeah, it's a little bit different experience than most, I guess, as far as career
Yeah.
path goes.
Well, and if talk about a job where if you screw up all of the public knows that you screwed up, right? Like
Oh
it's one of
yeah,
those things. You've got that big gas can in your hands. That's hard to miss.
yeah, oh yeah. People pay attention if that falls to the ground; they'll see it.
Do you
So,
do you recall any of the drivers that drove while you were on pit lane for you?
um, we had, oh shoot, some of the Bodines would drive the truck. Um, Trying to think, he was an older
So you had
gentleman
like
at the
Todd
time.
and Jeff or
Yes.
Jeffrey.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. All
Before they
right.
would get in the CLR car, that was another one that we would mess with sometimes. If they needed us, we would help. There, I would end up carrying tires or throwing tires over a wall at another carrier. But yeah, they were around a lot.
How long did you do the NASCAR thing then?
So NASCAR, I was in some form or another through 2005. I
Okay.
guess it was 5 or 6. Testing my memory now. Because I went from being an over the wall guy to building engines. So I ended up
Really?
leaving being at the track, and because everybody moves around a lot, or at least that's the way it used to be. I'm not in it now, so I don't know if it's still the same, but used to move around a lot. And I ended up at an engine builder, and we were building the Petty's engines. Everything Dodge was us coming out of our place. It was Mike Eggy Racing Engines at the time. Um, then I was in the teardown room, and then I was in the dyno room. I helped with assembly every once in a great while. Otherwise, we what we call track tune them at another shop in the race park there in Mooresville, and then we'd send them off to the track. So I've done the over the wall stuff. I've done engine building. I've done chassis. I've got thrown at some body stuff, which I'm not good at, but I can do it if I have to. Uh, yeah, I've had my hands in a bunch of it.
So what was next after NASCAR then? You go through this NASCAR experience, and I'm guessing that was great experience looking back on it because you got to work on a bunch of different stuff. What was the next chapter in your life there?
So I went away from automotive for a little bit. I went into engineering, more of the engineering field. I was doing some civil engineering stuff with the town of Mooresville, right in the middle of Race City, USA, because I was living there, right where NASCAR is. It's the home of NASCAR, I guess you could say. Um, and did that for a while before I ended up going back into racing again. So I went from that for a few years, maybe 3 years. And then, yeah, it was about 2006, again, testing my memory, 2006 or 2007, ended up with Aston Martin. So then I was
Wow.
working with them. Yeah, but I had to move. It was in Illinois.
Where in Illinois was that at?
So they're up in Lake Forest.
Yeah,
The
north of
team,
Chicago.
yep, the team I was with and ended up being the crew chief of, and started to help them build the team and built staffing and all the equipment and set us all up with everything we needed. It was American Le Mans SCCA Pro Team. Um, and we worked directly with Aston Martin and at the time Pro Drive to race the 007 and DRS 9 and also the V8 Vantage. And then we
Wow.
built the one and only Aston Martin Daytona prototype, which also had the 007 number.
That's
Yeah.
cool. I like the tie there. And then I mean, as different as those two forms of motorsports are, was there any similarity between them as far as what you saw on the NASCAR side and then going to the Aston Martin side?
There is some as far as just the way you have to do things, because at the time the France family had just bought um, I believe what's called now the American Racing League. I might be butchering all these names. Someone's going to probably correct me, but it was American Le Mans at the time, and they had just bought it. So procedures had changed that were similar that I was used to. Rules were similar to a certain point, but then you're limited on horsepower, and then um, they can change your horsepower on air restriction. So they would change the restrictor right past your air filter to reduce the amount of airflow if you had too much power. So everybody is similar in horsepower when you're running SCCA Pro or American Le Mans. Like I said, it might have changed. I've been out of it for a little while, so they might
Yeah.
be doing things different. It's probably all in the computer now. Um, but yeah, there were some similarities. But as far as the cars themselves, no, it's a bit different. Cage wise, of course, safety, belts are belts, right? You're trying to keep everybody safe. But the cars themselves are completely different animals.
Yeah, I was it maybe a change in mindset when you go that direction because you're used to or were kind of raised on the NASCAR side going that direction, and maybe I imagine more electronics, more of some of the technology that you didn't have with stock cars. Was it a little bit of a shift in mindset and how you approach it?
It was that was kind of where my learning curve was on, I call the IT side of it, because of the electronics and the programming, which I didn't have a lot of. It was all carburetors when I was in NASCAR. So it wasn't, there was no electronics really. So it was a bit different. Um, but I just picked it up quickly, just learned what I needed to do. I worked with Bosch directly a lot. Bosch and then the guys up in Michigan were a huge help
Oh, I
at their
bet.
facility, because they have race engineers. That's all they do is racing. So they would come down and help you, like, no, this is set up. This needs to be different. Change this to that, and change this wiring, and they helped with our data cart stuff like that for the Aston stuff. Um, but that's where I really started getting into the electronics, was that back that time frame. 2006, 2007 is where I really started to get a good grasp of it, because I was in the middle of it, and then I had to teach other guys on a team about it, because it fell into my lap as I ended up there. Um, the whole program kind of built around the fact that they had someone who was from racing and they wanted to get back in racing. Their family had been in racing a long time and they had a partnership with Aston. So I just kind of was at the right place at the right time. Just one of those things that fell together.
Yeah, that, that just that part of your life is extremely fascinating. We haven't even gotten to the fast forward stuff. How long were you with Aston Martin then? Like what did
So
that time frame look like?
it was, I would say it was 2000, yeah, late 2005, 2006, all the way through 2007 into 2008, when the economy took a dive, and then
Mm-hmm.
kind of everything in the industry, whether racing, whether dealerships, as you know, everything kind of changed when the economy took a hit. So it changed everything, not in just automotive world, but changed everything in a lot of industries.
Yeah,
So
it was a tough time then. I going through it, I was still relatively early in my career, and that was one of those things where you've never been through it, and then all of a sudden it throws you a curveball, and you go about business differently. But uh, I don't. I think that still feels like a fresh wound to a lot of us, right? That 2008
yeah,
2009 time frame. There's a lot of stuff going on then.
yeah, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago, and here I
No.
go aging myself again, but uh, it doesn't feel like it was that long ago, but it had a huge impact and effect on everything. And that's where I shifted to going to work for the government, because we had lost all of our funding. At one time, we had Jimmy John's, the Subway sandwich place. Um, what is it? Freaky Fast, I believe, is their term.
Yeah.
Um, we had him as a sponsor, and then when the economy crashed, we didn't, because obviously everybody had to look at what they were doing. And then that's when everything changed in racing. And I decided to get out of it and look for something else. And I ended up going to the government.
And what was your first job with the government then?
So, government, I was originally hired with TSA, but I ended up working for crisis management, which is under DHS, but technically part of TSA, um, where we had a command center, and I took the command center all over the country, wherever we needed to go, for whether it was the Super Bowl, whether it was the RNC, the DNC events for election time, um, any national event that they needed support at, we would bring the command center. And it's because I had a radio background and I've got an FCC license. So they found out about all that and knew I could work on stuff. And I kind of got pulled into that, to where I was doing communications and um, disseminating information, I guess is the term everybody loves to use, where we make sure the right entities had the right information about what's going on. So
Interesting. That uh, it, talk about kind of a different pivot in your life, right? Going from the
Yeah,
racing
huge.
side to now more the government side in general, and then ultimately leading you to the Secret Service, right? And I think I told you in our first conversation that we ever had, I had never even thought about the Secret Service having techs, right? Like I don't know why it never crossed my mind. It never was one of those things where I'm like, that would be a pretty cool opportunity. And George Arentz from ASE was the first one to really tell me about it, right? And you've got a good
Yeah.
relationship with George and all the folks at ASE, but as he was telling me about it, I was fascinated immediately. And then he introduced us down in Vegas, and it's cool, right? Like I have to imagine the first time that comes across your table of an opportunity with the Secret Service that you're pretty excited about it.
Yeah, and we got involved with ASE um, because nobody knows about us. So we're such a small group, but it's very demanding what we do. Number one, you have to be automotive, um, but you also have to be willing to be a federal law enforcement officer. So we were trying to find a way to tell people we existed to start with. And then our age limit also, to come to work for us, you have to be 37 or younger. So it put us in a bind, and we were always having a hard time every time we did a posting because nobody would know what that was. Like, what is this job posting? And then if you didn't read through it, you wouldn't see all the automotive stuff involved in the job description. You just read the title and you kind of move on when you're on USA Jobs. So I contacted ASE, um, and Jenny over there set up a meeting, and I went in and talked to them about, hey, what do we need to do? What are things we can do better at Secret Service to help our recruitment for my position, for the things that we do? And I explained to them what we do. And most everybody there, except for one person, had no clue we existed either. But we're in ASE system. We have an employer number, just like all these dealership and dealer groups do with ASE. So you can report your years of experience and get your certifications and all that. But nobody really knew about us because it's such a niche group, and there has never been that many of us over the history of the Secret Service that, we just need to get the word out. So they've been a huge help. George, Jenny, Dave, Mike, Virginia, they've all been awesome, helping
Yeah.
us. So
Yeah, they're a great group of folks. Some of the people that I'm closest to in this industry, and always a big fan of ASE. Now, as you got into it, and say you go through that process, we'll talk about your experience, and then we'll kind of segue that into maybe somebody that's interested out there, how they would look at something like this. When you first kind of get your offer and are starting to work, was there a training program or something that you go through to be able to work on what you're about to work on, or how does that work?
well, again, it was a coincidence of being in the right place at the right time about how I found out about it. I was working at the UN in New York, for the big event once a year. And I was doing crisis management stuff. And I was working with a federal marshal that knew somebody at Secret Service and said there was an opening and knew my mechanical background and was like, hey, you can do this. He's like, why don't you apply? I was like, oh, I've aged out. And he's like, no, they changed the age limit. So I ended up getting hired. But my story is a little different because I was a transfer. I was already with DHS, and technically Secret Service is under DHS. So they follow Department of Homeland Security hiring policy. So I was able to transfer even though I was almost 40 years old because I already had federal time, and the age limit was different back then than it is now. Um, and come over, and that's how I found out about it. Was, again, like I was saying, is through somebody. Like, somebody told me about it. Is all word of mouth. Um, and then getting back to your original question, you had to have the knowledge to even apply. So I'm a triple master ASE certified technician. I keep it up to date. I still am. I have some other stuff on top of that, whether it's service writing, body work certs. Um, I have the military certifications now. I've gone through the process of doing those. Um, but you have to have that beforehand. You need that to apply. Like, you need the education, you need the knowledge to be able to apply. for one of these spots. But you also have to have the willingness to go to federal law enforcement training, which is completely separate, has nothing to do with working on anything automotive, to learn law enforcement. And you have to be willing to do all that, plus work on the cars to do our job. So
So
it's a bit different.
is that something where, say I'm that ASE master tech that's out there right now and want to look at something like this, that comes after you're hired? Like, do you get hired and then go through the law enforcement training, or do you have to go through that even before applying?
No, you would go through that after you were offered, and once you go through the background investigation, and once you pass your physical and all that kind of stuff. Um, there's a polygraph too with ours, which sometimes turns people off, but
Interesting.
you do have to go through a polygraph exam also, because of the people you're working around. I mean, you're around the top politicians in the United States and some from other countries all the time. So they're making certain that the people we hire are the right people.
How nerve wracking was that the first time going through a
Uh,
polygraph? Like, even I have to imagine you're trying to do your best and trying to make sure that you're representing yourself in an honest way, but that adds a whole other element to it.
yeah, it can be a little stressful if you've never done one before. The only thing I can really say about it is you just got to be honest.
Yep.
As long as you're honest, you don't have anything to really worry about.
Yeah.
And normally we don't, federal government probably doesn't get too many people with all kinds of things and skeletons in their closets that apply for
Yeah.
those jobs. So as long as you're truthful about everything, you should be fine. Um, but it's a long process for the person that comes in off the street, or a dealership in this case, let's say, or maybe out of racing. Um, you're looking at about a year process to get through, depending, especially right now, we're trying to do a lot of hiring, not just but us, but Secret Service in total. A lot of agents, a lot of uniform division is needed right now. So I would say it's about a year if you apply. And then if you make it to the point where they say, hey, you've made the list, hey, here's an interview date. Can you do it at this time? And then to get past the interview and go do your background and your credit check and your investigational interviews and all that kind of stuff. It can take a lot of time. So it's a dedication to get through the process alone, let alone to come on.
And I feel like if you're a person that's going to go through that, you probably, it's one of those things where maybe it checks the boxes on a bunch of stuff that you as an individual want to do, right? And if you've got the purpose of why you want to do it, I have to imagine you're willing to jump through those hoops because it's pretty cool what's on the other side of that.
Yeah, exactly. And that was one of the main things that interests me, is it was something that was not only very unique, but served a much bigger purpose, being with Secret Service than, being at not to say anything bad about being at a dealership or an independent or anything else, but there's nothing else like it. And obviously, when we travel around the world, we're not just there as a tech. We're wearing a suit. Nobody knows who we are. We're just Secret Service with the United States government. So you're representing the US no matter where you go, no matter what you do. So anytime you've got that star on your chest or on your hat, if you're wearing a hat around, everybody knows you're with the US government. So it's a much bigger purpose you're serving, I would say,
Yeah.
than working, pick a dealer, pick a race team. It's a bit different.
Yeah. You talk about purpose. That's about as purposeful as you can get, right? You're serving the greater good. You're doing the things that maybe not everybody's willing to do. And I think that is, and on top of that, even being polished enough to represent the United States in other countries and even on our own turf in a professional way that really kind of shows off who you are as a professional. And, I think it does take the right type of person to fit that mold. And I'm sure there's a lot of them out there that, similar to a lot of us in the general public, didn't even know that positions like this exist. And I do think that's a cool part about doing something like this podcast with you, is to be able to kind of shine a light on that, because there are some people that would fit that perfectly, right? And it's trying to find those right folks that fit the bill, want to serve the greater good and do something that's different, and probably have, just a different career path than we might have even thought as we were kids, right? Like, yeah, a lot of us probably, I can't imagine too many educators even know that there's opportunities like this out there.
No, not at all. And that's one of the great things that we've now started last year, and we're going back in a couple weeks this year, is to the ASE Education Conference that they do once a year, and we'll have that opportunity to talk to all these different technical schools, whether it's technical high school, whether it's technical college like UTI, Lincoln Tech, YO Tech, all the big ones, right? Everybody's there. Everybody from the industry shows up that deals with educating technicians. And it's great to be able to talk to all of them, because until last year, we kept getting over and over again when people would come around to our table, they're like, we didn't even know you existed. We didn't know there was techs at Secret Service. And we're like, well, the cars don't change their own oil. So we're there, but no one thinks about it. So, and when you started talking to me about this possibility, I thought it was great, because I've kind of taken our special services division recruitment and kind of run with it. And like, this is a great help to us. So we definitely appreciate you helping getting the word out. Like I said, ASC has been a great help to us to get the word out, because people just don't know about us. And, hopefully we do get more people that apply. We've gone from 3 applications and nobody making the list to get interviewed to 36 people made the list for us to sift through to then interview for the last openings we had. So that alone is a huge improvement, and hopefully we can get that up from there. But there's a lot of things you can do in the automotive world that people don't think about, other than independent or dealership life. There's other things out there, from working on heavy equipment for Caterpillar out in the field, to working on big trucks, to military equipment. There's a lot out there that people just don't know about. So it's great to be able to get the word out and talk to people
Absolutely.
about it.
Oh my goodness. Yes. And we always talk about, I talk about my personal experience growing up in the industry, and that I didn't know that there were opportunities beyond the kind of 4 walls of my family's automotive shop that I grew up in. And until you kind of get out and experience that, all of that this industry has to offer, you truly don't know. And so the more we can help spread that word on all of the different types of opportunities there are out there, I think the better the health of our industry is, right? Because then maybe that tech that is maybe burnt out by what they're in right now, there are other things or other ways that you can pivot to, and do so in a way where once you get that initial technical skill set, it leads to a lot of other things if you choose to, right? And I don't know that general public awareness or the general public know about all the different ways you can go. And this is just one of many just incredible opportunities that'll give you some life experiences you'll surely never forget.
Oh, 100%. Like, in the automotive skills that I built over the years was how I ended up in that engineering time frame when I did that in my career, right, for professional work. So they I applied because I was looking for something at the time, and they saw I had the technical ability and knew I could read wiring diagrams, and look at schematics. So they're like, well, blueprints aren't that much different. So I ended up in roadway engineering, and I'm inspecting highways and roadways in North Carolina, traffic signals. It turned into all kinds of different things. But that technical background that you build learning automotive translates, like you said, into so many other things, and it just opens the door to go other places. It's just another one of those, I think, blue collar jobs that people love to call them, that people don't think about a lot. Um, I know in some areas, like being an automotive mechanic or a technician kind of is a dirty word to some people, because they're like, oh, that's just a dirty tech or mechanic. They don't know what they're talking about. Well, no, especially now, because you have to know so much IT. There's so much knowledge that you need to even work on a vehicle nowadays. It can really take you to other places other than um, working on cars. I mean, from planes to tanks to you name it, as you know, you can go all kinds of different places with it.
Yeah. Once you are competent in that skill set, that leads a bunch of different directions. Technicians, have you checked out WrenchWay yet? It's a free online community for automotive and diesel professionals just like you. Whether you're job hunting or just looking to connect with other industry professionals, WrenchWay makes it easy to explore opportunities, stay updated on industry news, and help promote the technician profession. With WrenchWay, you can see detailed job info you care about before you apply or interview, stay in the loop with what's happening in the auto and diesel community, explore technician compensation in your area and across the U.S., track your certifications, and much more. Join the WrenchWay community for free at wrenchway.com or download the WrenchWay mobile app. Links are in the show notes. I want to talk about your day-to-day life and what that looks like in the Secret Service. Is it the same kind of feel as anything else in terms of what you're working on, how you're working on it, or is it because you're working on some cool stuff, it's different? I'm assuming you mentioned changing oil before. Guessing there's a lot of maintenance items and just normal stuff that you would see on anything, but give me an idea of what your day-to-day looks like working for the Secret Service.
So technically, my title is Protective Armored Specialist. It's gone through a couple of different title changes, but that's our current title. We do everything with the cars you see on TV, and like they're in the background there, I believe. Everything from the time we receive those cars from General Motors until we destroy them, we're the ones that touch them and work on them. Nobody else does. It's all done in our facility. So that's from body work, that's from oil changes, whether there's a transmission issue, whether there's a door hinge issue, whether you name it, glass, we do it all. Interior, leather work, we have to do all of it. So we do a very wide range of things. It's pretty much everything you could think of with a vehicle. But on a daily, like you're doing basic stuff, right? You're looking over the vehicle like you would before you went on a vacation. You're looking for anything stuck in the tires. You're looking for anything loose, rattling, anything wrong underneath the car. Your standard suspension inspection, oil changes, oil levels, fluid changes for your coolant. You're checking AC performance constantly to make sure you can keep the protectees in the car nice and cool when we're out somewhere hot like the Middle East or Florida, Hawaii, you name it. They want to stay cool. You don't want them in there sweating. So that's a big thing. It's any maintenance you can think of is what we do, plus some, because the cars have to be perfect all the time. Because the other thing is we take these cars everywhere. We've put them on a military C-17 or C-5. That's one of our other responsibilities is protective armor specialist is we're in charge of loading the plane to make sure everything's chained down properly. The rest of the gear on the plane is loaded correctly. There's room for our canines because the dogs come with us. Everything is done the way it's supposed to by the book and by Air Force regs. And we work directly with the Air Force loadmasters every plane flight. I had 2 this week in the last 4 days. So it's just another one of those things that we do to make sure the cars are there and ready to represent the U.S. no matter where we go.
So when you get to work, is your to-do list changing frequently? Like you go in and you're like, okay, today we're just going to do regular maintenance. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, never mind. We're going to a different thing, or we're doing something different than what was on the initial plan.
Yeah. That's the other thing is you have to be real flexible with our job because one minute you might think you're going to be home for a couple of weeks and the next you are not, and you're traveling overseas somewhere and you have a 30-hour plane flight ahead of you tomorrow morning. So like on a daily going in, yes, if let's just say you're getting ready for a trip and you've got some vehicles assigned to you for that trip, then you would get those vehicles together and then you go over each one of them. They all go up on a lift, all of them get looked at inside and out, and we go into our system and look to see, okay, is this due for maintenance now or is it not? Is it where I just need to do what we call a pre-trip? It's kind of like a safety inspection you would get going into a dealership. where they go over like 110-point inspection or whatever. Only we don't print sheets and give it to anybody because we're the ones in them. So we go
Yeah.
over them and make sure that everything is the way it's supposed to be. And they're in as best condition as they possibly can be before we take them on a trip. So you could be coming in the shop doing that, doing your pre-trips for going somewhere, or there could be an issue with a vehicle, or a vehicle got body damage, because obviously we drive them all over DC all the time. The agents drive them all over because we're not always with the cars in town. So something may happen. It does happen. And then you got to bring it to our body shop. And we have guys that don't travel that are just body shop, and bring it to them to have it fixed. Or it might be something where you come in and there's just 7 cars that need maintenance, and those are the ones that get assigned to you. And you go through them and do the maintenance, whether it's air filters, cabin air filters, oil changes, a trans flush, you name it. Rear end service, you're changing the diff fluid. It could be any of that. But it's always on what we call the black fleet. It's all armored vehicles is what we work on. We don't work on, for the most part, we don't work on any government vehicles. I mean, they are government vehicles, but we only work on the armored fleet.
Does that, like, I'm assuming if there's one specific armored vehicle that, like, if the schedule's changing all the time, there's probably a little bit of pressure on the maintenance schedule in terms of how fast you get it done, isn't it? Because if there's a chance that that vehicle is needed like now, then you would have to get that done. Or is it something where you have flexibility in what vehicle goes where?
We do. Our operations department figures out what cars go where, and on whose trip with who. We try to keep sets of cars together, but that always doesn't work because of maintenance, because of, say something gets scratched on a plane, then it goes in the body shop to get painted, it gets fixed. Any little thing, should change that. But we basically schedule everything out that we know. Let's say you're going to Hawaii, that, okay, these cars are going there for a week. So we need to make sure they're not going to need maintenance while they're there. We'll do it ahead of time if it's close, but not quite there. And we just plan it out. We have a service schedule that we keep with our specifications for everything. And then we just keep to that schedule. It could pop up like you're asking, where like a trip pops up and all of a sudden the cars that we're going need maintenance. But if that's the case, then we stay, whether it's 2 people, 1 person, stay all night if we have to get it done so that they're ready to go.
Talk about flexibility. Having to just, and I think that goes back to speaking to serving the greater good, right? Like you're there's a purpose beyond just like an 8 to 5, where that you're needed and that your job is obviously very, very important. I do have a dumb question for you, which is, how hard is that to drive on a hoist, or any of them to drive on a hoist? Like that, like a normal car, you're kind of making sure your tires are lined up and that you're driving up. When you've got a lot of vehicle, that's got to be a little bit of a different challenge.
It's very similar to
Is
just
it?
your standard vehicle. It's just bigger. So
Yeah.
you just have to pay attention to what you're doing, but it's very, very similar. It's just the lifts are bigger, the vehicles are bigger. You just have to be careful. It's kind of like working on a tractor trailer. Like, they do the same thing as guys that are working at a Chevy dealer, but they have a little bit different process because the vehicle is so much bigger. So, and there's other things to look out for. And it's basically the same thing with us. It's very similar. Like I said, everybody there has got a background from working, whether it's at dealerships or in racing or in private shops before they came to us. And it's all translates. It's just a learning curve when you first start, so you can figure out, okay, this is how I lift it, this is where the points are at. It's just a little bit different, that's all.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes total sense. Now, as you're bringing more people on, I'm assuming any of this is very process driven, right? Like whether it's the inspections or doing any of the maintenance, I'm assuming there's a lot of process behind what you're doing. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, as far as how I want to put it. Like we've worked with these same vehicles for a long time and the type of vehicles. Obviously, we use mostly all Chevy right now. Um, and we know what they need because of historically what goes on with the vehicles. We know how we use them and what time frames, whether it's hours or mileage, what we need to do for maintenance and what things need to be replaced as a maintenance item and what doesn't. And we just learned as we went over the years, which is before my time there. I've been there for a little over 10 years. Um, but we've built that background and that knowledge base so that we have a maintenance record or we have a maintenance schedule that we go by, and we know what things we need to look at all the time, what things we need to maintenance all the time.
Now, I'm not sure if this is a fair question to ask, so we'll edit it out if I can't ask it. But are is driving a component of what you do as well?
Yes. So if you go back to someone coming on fresh, um, not only do you have to be willing to do law enforcement for the federal government and go down for 16 weeks to Georgia or one of our other training centers and get certified as a federal law enforcement officer, but you have to pass our driving school. And our driving school is a week long. It's at our training facility in Maryland. Um, and to be a protective armored specialist and or to drive one of the cars, if you're an agent who wants to work on what we call TS, transportation section, for the president or vice president, you have to pass the driving course. And it's a week long. It's a good solid 6-7 days. It's day and night of driving, high performance driving skills. It's not just our armored vehicles. So you have to be able to perform under high pressure with a high level of driving ability in order to get a chance to work on that side. So that is part of it. Yeah, we as far as protective armored specialists, we go through the law enforcement training facility for the federal government, which is about 16 weeks. You go through our training facility, which is another 12 to 16, depending on holidays and all that stuff, how that all falls. And then the driving course is another week. And then you start getting on the job training at our facility with a mentor. We basically set someone with you who's already traveling on their own, that's been doing all of it for a while. And then they train that next person. And be like, okay, so this is how we work on this. This is how we check that. Um, this is how we load the aircraft. They're kind of they're their mentor until they're signed off on and they can travel then by themselves. There's a long training process involved, even though they come with maybe a master or a double master or been with Ford for God knows how long. We've got Ford techs, we've got GM techs, we've got people that worked with Jeep, Volvo, uh, Volkswagen. We've got a variety of different backgrounds in our shop.
That is awesome. How did you have to prepare for the driving test? Like, did you do anything on your own before doing
Mm,
that?
no, not really. I mean, I heard about it, but being that I came from the racing background, I I wasn't too worried.
Yeah.
But it does put pressure on you because everything is timed and there's standards that have to be met for different tactics in driving. So I mean, when you're doing it can make you sweat a little bit because you have to pass. It's with us, it's pass or fail, right? There's no grade, there's no A, B, C, or D. It's can you do this or can't you? So that you feel that, right? But it wasn't horrible. But I myself and the other guys in the shop, a lot of us have been around, whether it's motorcycle racing, drag racing, professional racing like I did. All the guys have done something in their past. So they all are pretty good. And everyone drives really well. So we have a
Was,
good group of people right now.
was that part fun or was it just too stressful to be fun?
Oh, it is. It's way more fun than going through the regular training and sitting in a classroom and learning medical stuff that I never thought I was going to learn. Um, yeah, I'd much rather be behind the wheel than learning how to triage. So
100%. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I think that would be one of the more pleasurable parts of doing that, except as long as you can kind of maintain nerves in
Right.
what might be at stake, right? That's an interesting part of the job that I frankly was not aware of. That's it, but it makes total sense, right? Like when you look at how much or how many different things that you're having an impact on, that is a pretty important element to it. Is just being able to drive and to do it effectively.
Yep. Yeah. I would say there's three big things with all of our guys in the shop. It's, of course, everyone needs to be a great technician, right? Which we have a great bunch of people right now. And hopefully we'll be able to add some more soon. But you have to be able to be a great tech. You have to be able to communicate very well with your peers, with supervisors, because when you're on the road, you're by yourself. So you're the only tech for that trip, whether it's India, whether it's Indiana, whether it's California, whether it's China, it doesn't matter. You're the only one. So everybody turns to you if there's an issue with a vehicle. So you have to be able to communicate what's going on to the bosses and to your peers that you're working with and the agents that are driving. Um, so that and just the ability to work with all kinds of different people, whether it's foreign diplomats, whether it's our people at Secret Service, whether it's local police in the US or outside of it, you're working with all kinds of people. Those are the three biggest things I think
Talk about
with our job.
a broad skill set. You've got a little bit of everything covered, and you have
Mhm.
to. What do you wear like in your normal day to day in the shop? Are you wearing just like a normal like shop uniform, or what do you wear when you're in the shop?
Yeah, so we have t-shirts and sweatshirts that have our division logo on it. We wear that, and classic tech or mechanics pants or 511s essentially. Um, and steel toe, same as everywhere else. You wear safety glasses in the shop, same as everywhere else. Um, but then when we're on the road, it's not as comfortable. You're not wearing a t-shirt anymore in 511s. You're wearing a suit and you've got your firearm and a radio. Plus, you probably have a multi-tool on you because you're the tech that's got to work on stuff. And of course, the multi-tool comes in crazy
Very
handy.
handy.
Um, Plus, you got a suit and tie on. Your body armor's on, so you're carrying around a lot of stuff. If you have to do something, so
It, you have some like some government issued coveralls or something that you can put over the suit. I'd feel bad if you get the white shirt, get some oil
Oh
on the white shirt or
no,
something.
it unfortunately has happened quite a few times where I end up just throwing the shirt out when I get home because it's just
Uh
not
huh.
coming out. Um, but that's just part of it. That's just part of the deal. You do your best not to ruin your suit jacket, but it happens. Like all the guys, I'm sure we've all torn pants doing stuff. We've all messed up shirts. You take your tie off so you don't get yourself caught in the belt in the engine or something. But it, you just do what you got to do in the end to keep the vehicles running. Luckily, our maintenance is incredible. So the process we do go through to get the vehicles ready, we don't have those major issues, but they're cars, right? We can't, unfortunately, wave a magic wand over them and nothing ever happens. Things do happen. And that's why we travel on every trip. That's why we go everywhere with the agents in the uniform division. Every time the vice president or president wants to go somewhere, we're there because things happen. They're in the end, they're cars. So
You are the first guest that I've ever talked to that has to remove their tie before they work on the car. I don't know any other position where you've got to do that.
yeah, it happens, but I keep my head on my shoulders so the tie comes off if I have to do something under the
100%.
hood.
What about like tools? In the Secret Service, are you buying your own tools, or are they all supplied at the shop, or how does that work?
So everything is government purchased. So you don't have to, unlike a dealership or a private uh, shop, you don't have to buy your own tools. You're not supplying your own stuff. Um, when I walked in, that was one of my first questions at the end of the interview when they asked me if I had any questions was, what about tools? And it's all supplied. And if there's something we need, we will purchase it. Um, and we use a variety of suppliers, whether it's all the ones everybody knows, whether it's Mac, everybody in the industry knows Mac, Matco, Snap-on, Cornwell. Sometimes it's GM specific tools because obviously we have a lot of GM vehicles. And if we need that, we get it. but everything is supplied by the shop.
How does that work? Because I'm assuming you're not getting just a random tool truck coming up to the shop. How do you get your tools?
Oh yeah, no, there's no truck that comes on base to come see us. Each one of those companies has government salespeople, and we contact them directly and let them know what we're looking for, and that's how we acquire it. We don't go through a tool truck or anything. Each one of the companies, like I said, has someone specifically that sells to the government, whether it's federal, whether it's local government, whether it's the military. Those same, I don't want to call them salespeople because they're not like the truck folks. They don't work on commission. They're not in the same kind of pay plan. They're just, this is what they do. They just sell to the federal government or local government. So, and they're great to work with. All the companies have been great as far as dealing with that to get anything. We've had no issues being able to get anything we need.
In Is it like almost you go to a trade school or something like that where there's shared tools? Is it kind of a shared toolbox where you're doing inventory and you're making sure that stuff is getting put back where it's supposed to be? How does that look?
Yes, anybody can go to anybody's what we call your bay. Everyone kind of assigned to a spot just because everybody has different ways they like to do things and has tools set out and toolboxes a little bit differently. But anybody can go to any bay in our shop and get stuff to work on a vehicle. And you may not have a specific tool. We also have a tool room, just like a dealership does. And we have specialty tools that are in that tool room. And if you need it to fix that vehicle, you go in, and depending on what it is, you might have to sign it out, you might not, but everybody knows where it goes. And myself and a couple other guys in the shop kind of keep track of everything in the tool room itself. It's another one of the things I've kind of taken on along with a couple of other guys, and we make sure that the stuff in the tool room is always there for everybody to use. Whether it's a scan tool, whether it's something for the suspension, you name it, cooling system tool, we'll keep it in the tool room. Because just like a wrench, it's not like a wrench actually, where it's not something you need in everybody's box. But all the standard normal stuff you would think of, whether it's a 1/2 inch impact or a 13 millimeter wrench or the famous 10 mil socket, everybody's got those in their box, and then the specialty stuff's in the tool room. So, and then we have stuff we travel with, and that's pretty much very specific to the person, what they believe they use the most and what they like to use, and that's what's in their travel box, is what we call it, for their travel tools. And they can kind of pick and choose what they need, and then we make sure as a group that the tech has what they need in their travel box. So if they break a 13 mil, we'll get them another 13 mil, same warranty as everybody else has. We'll call them up, say, hey, this broke, we need another one, and they'll send it to us. But that is the item I would say is the most specific to each tech in our shop, is the travel box, because everybody has, their favorite stuff that they like to use to work on stuff. So that's the most unique.
If you're making that 30-hour flight, you might want to take a couple 10 millimeter sockets, right?
Yeah.
Just in,
Yeah,
just in case.
not just the one in the glass case to break it because of an emergency. Yeah.
Now, does everybody travel on your team? Like you're taking different shifts, and like, is it everybody? You start on kind of your travel path, if you will, when you start.
Yeah, pretty much everybody. There's 14 of us protective armored specialists, and all of us travel. Some less than others because they're also running our operations section, dealing with the scheduling and timekeeping and what cars are going where and what cars need to get repaired. And we have 2 leads in our shop. One is in our ops, one is in the shop itself, to make sure that everything's getting maintained like it does, or parts are getting ordered like it's supposed to, just assigning work to people. And then our ops person assigns the trips. So they're kind of separate, but they all overlap. And then all of us in the shop fill in whenever we need. So like good example is our ops guys going on vacation, and we'll have someone filling in there. So everybody knows what's going on. So we all work really well together to make sure that everything flows really well, and everybody works as a team great together, which is one of the nice things.
Was there any adjustment? I know you probably traveled, or you did travel a lot within the US for your racing career, but when you go to this level, you are traveling the world and some really, really long flights. Was there anything that you had to do to kind of adjust? Whether it's, I fly across country and I feel the jet lag. I can't imagine taking a 30-hour flight and how I feel on the way down.
Yeah, it is a little rough at first. I say you kind of get used to it, but then again, you kind of don't. It's different. The biggest thing for me is time changes. That's what'll really get you, because you might leave at 10 o'clock at night here on the East Coast, and you get somewhere, and it's not just 11 in the morning; it's 11 in the morning the next day when you get there. Um, so it does take a little bit of adjustment. That's probably the hardest thing is the time changes when traveling. But in the end, like all of us seem to kind of go about it the same way, where there's a job that has to be done, and you work through it. You just get as much rest on the plane as you can, depending on your flight. 2 hour, 3 hour flight, no big deal, right? You're just in the US somewhere. But when it's a long flight like that, everybody brings like a camping mat. Basically, you lay down in the plane after the plane gets up to where it needs to be and the pilot says it's cool, and you all lay down and go to sleep. um, and just get as much rest as you can on the plane. For We call them car planes, for when we get there.
Interesting. It is, I can't imagine. I live by a calendar, and it always throws me off if I'm in a different time zone and somebody's trying to book a meeting with me and I'm trying to, I know the time difference of where I'm at versus home, but then I'm like, okay, I'm scheduling this meeting on my Google Calendar and I'm not even sure if I'm in the right time slot, or, it's just the little stuff like that that I think over time with traveling as much as you do, especially across the world, you probably get used to, and trying to, you have your own system set up for your personal life as well, I'm sure, and just trying to make sure that you do as much as you can to keep your home life in order as well.
Yeah, it can get a little tasking it sometimes. Or you'll get that phone call at 2 in the morning while you're asleep, but it's the middle of the day back home, and that'll throw you. But it's happened to all of us. Like it happens. But you just kind of, take the swings as they come, and you just push through. So, you know,
Yeah.
uh, it's not too bad. It's just, to me, the biggest thing with the travel is that, like I was saying, is the time change when you go somewhere far away. And usually, more than anything, it's when you come home, because you might need to go to sleep when you get home, but you can't, because for you it's the middle of the day still from where you just came from. So
You're
that's
going
the
to throw
biggest
everything off.
adjustment. Yeah. Yeah.
I, and I'm sure there's little things like, I think the older I get, the more I understand the importance of needing to hydrate when I'm on a plane, and like drink plenty of water. And I like it, just little things that seem so elementary, but can have such an impact on how you feel when you're done traveling. I think are huge things.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That everybody, I think, whether it's an agent traveling on the plane to work, to visit, or one of us that's going to be driving or working with the cars, you learn that pretty quick, that you need to stay hydrated all the time. Um, and then, everybody adjusts differently, but you figure that out pretty quick because you travel so much, um,
Yeah.
that you figure out what you need to do. And it's kind of like the headphones. That's like a must, basically, to travel, because it's just loud being in a plane for that long. So you need headphones to keep your sanity.
Uh, Now, my wife will get a kick out of this question, but uh, you have been around some very, very like the highest profile people in the world, right? Like it's incredible. Did you ever have a time, not asking for any specific time, but like times where you're like get starstruck or like are almost uh, taken aback? I'm guessing it's probably not that way now, but when you first started, was it a little intimidating?
Um, yes. My first trip by myself was to California, years ago now, and it was with President Obama at the time. And I found out that the site we were going to, the Kardashians were going to be there, and I think Kanye West and a bunch of other people were going to be there. And I was kind of like, really? They're all going to be there? So they came out to see the cars, and I was standing there and then had to talk about the cars. So it kind of caught me off guard. Um, and that was my first trip by myself after my mentoring trips and, joining the service and all that stuff, going through all the training. So it was a little bit different. Um, but you do, I kind of say you get numb to it eventually,
Yeah.
um, because it becomes not to downplay what any of us are doing, but it becomes the norm. So the starstruck thing kind of goes away. Um, but you run into people all the time that you see on TV that most people don't, and you're like, oh, that person's shorter than I thought they were, or but they come over asking questions about the cars all the time. Whenever the beast is around, that everybody loves to call it, the big car, the beast. We call it our limo, but um, that they always ask questions. So they'll either turn to us or they turn to one of the other couple of drivers that are there, and we're always answering questions. So um, it's another one of those things you kind of have to get used to, but you do at first. It takes a little bit of a adjustment time to get used to.
I can imagine that's a different element that I think most of us don't run into. I will say it's funny that you said the taller or shorter thing, because I've done that forever, where I make the assumption in my head and then you meet a person in person, and I think it's a natural human thing to think that way. And then would you actually see that person like, oh, and I've actually had people come up to me and whether it's at a conference or wherever, and say, oh, I would have thought you would have been taller. I would have thought you would have been shorter. And like, it's kind of both ways, but yeah, it is funny, those little things that come up. The last thing I'll say and mention is give a shout out to your wife. I was able to meet her down in Vegas as well, right? And
Yeah.
uh, we had such a good conversation, and I think we always talk about the importance of getting buy-in and being able to surround your family life in a way that's supportive of your career, and it's really
Oh,
really hard at
100%.
times. So just in talking to her, you could tell she, she's fit for this, right? For being able to handle some of this.
Yeah, she's in the medical world, so she's used to stress and stuff like that. But I met her after I was on the job. So moving to DC is when met my wife. So she came into it while I was already in it, which can definitely help because it is a strain on family life. That we've got newer guys. Again, it's trying to not make myself sound old, but we've got newer guys that, are just now having kids, and it's a bit different because they're missing stuff, right? You miss birthdays, you just in family stuff in general, you miss weddings, you miss birthdays, you might miss Christmas. Like we have a Christmas rotation list to make it fair for everybody in our shop. So there might be 3 guys up because of where the trips are going for Christmas time. But if you're going on Christmas, that's a Christmas trip. So you miss it. Um, Easter, you name it, the holidays, 4th of July this year, I just got back, but I was gone for 4th of July. I was on a trip. So you do miss those things. So it is a huge help when you have someone that supports and is all about what you're doing for your career.
If you've got, say, a relative's wedding come up, can you put that on the calendar and say, okay, I need to be home for this one thing? Or is it like you're just kind of at the mercy of the schedule?
No, you do have, just like every federal employee, you earn your sick time, you earn your annual leave time for vacation, right? Um, so you can use, you've got a doctor's appointment, you throw a sick day on the calendar and everybody knows who does the schedule. Hey, he's not going to be here. He's got to go to the doc. So you don't get put on a trip. If you've got a wedding, you know about it far enough out, or you got a vacation you want to go on, you put your vacation in ahead of time. And our ops guys, or our schedulers, I could say, do their best to make sure that you make it to those big events. But there is times too where you might get asked to cancel something that you had on the calendar. Like maybe you're doing like everyone likes to call a stay vacation now, or maybe you're going to be home for a couple of days because you had something you need to do at home, or you're working on your project car and you got a couple of days of leave in. Well, you might get asked, hey, there's not enough people. We have a trip. Can you do it? So you might get asked to cancel your leave. It does happen. It doesn't happen frequently. We try to do the best we can scheduling wise. But it is part of the job that we talk to people about when they, are thinking about applying, is that you have to be really, really flexible. And unfortunately, sometimes you do miss stuff.
Yeah, that's great insight there. In my last question, you've now traveled the entire world, I feel like. Is there a place that you went to that you thought was like underrated? Like when you maybe not that you were dreading going there, but once you got there, like, oh, this is way better than I would have thought it would have been.
I would say, even though I was there working, Ireland is very cool. Like the scenery is nothing like here in the US. It's very interesting, Ireland and Scotland. But my favorite is Japan.
Really?
The car scene is insane. So every time, if a Tokyo trip comes up and I can go, I will go. We don't have a lot of free time, but you don't really need it there because the cars are everywhere. Like
Really?
Yeah, it's very rampant, I will say, is the car culture there. It is very cool. It's also a very clean place. Like Japan is very clean. Customer service is ridiculous, off the chain ridiculous. So it's a great place to go. Like I've tried to convince my wife to go on vacation, but she's got too many other places that she wants to go before we go to Japan on a vacation. So
well, you'll be one heck of a tour guide whenever you do go to wherever you're going, being that you've had the experiences that you have. I kind of led off the podcast by talking about how much I was looking forward to this one. And it has been just such a pleasure to talk to you kind of in this long form content of a podcast and get to know you a little bit more and get to know your job a little bit more. It's a little different in that there are some things that we're not going to talk about in terms of what goes on in your job, and rightfully so. But this was a lot of fun. And I think just even learning some of the little ins and outs about what happened with you in your daily life. And, I think we were just scratching the surface, but it is really cool. And for those of you that are listening and might be interested, I'd tell you to go check it out. And, there is probably going to be some work ahead if you do decide to pursue it, but hard to find a cooler job than that. That is pretty awesome. So Lenny, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us for the podcast today.
Well, I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you asking me to do this. The thing I would say to anybody who might have interest in this, or even in the automotive industry at all, is check out ASE, because they're involved with everybody. Whether it's a school you want to go to, whether you're trying to find a place you want to go work, between the ASE Education Foundation and ASE itself, those folks know everybody in the automotive world.
They do.
And if somebody's interested in coming to us, USA Jobs is where we post our openings. We have what we call automotive mechanics, and we have what we do. I would say just keep an eye on that stuff and just look at ASE for, information on where to go and what schools to look at for certifications and all that kind of stuff, because they're the experts.
They are, and really, really good people too. So I think that was the perfect shout out there to ASE, our friends over there. Great folks, and great person here in Lenny. And thank you for sharing your story. Thanks for sharing a lot of what you do in your day-to-day life, and sure hope we get you back on again to talk more about it, because they're probably, I think I told you this in Vegas, but I could spend probably a long part of a day asking you questions about what you do. So this is great.
Well, it's been great. So I appreciate it.
That wraps up another episode of Beyond the Wrench. If you liked this episode, please show your support by rating and following the podcast. You can also watch the video interviews on WrenchWay's YouTube channel. Speaking of WrenchWay, did you know Beyond the Wrench is managed and produced by the WrenchWay team? WrenchWay is an online community dedicated to promoting and improving automotive and diesel careers. We help technicians find the best shops to work at, and we also help auto, diesel, and CTE instructors get more support from local industry. You can learn more by visiting wrenchway.com.